Old Bridge Fire Company needs volunteer firefighters for its Fern Road Firehouse. Persons 18 to 45 years old in the Fern Road Firehouse area who would like to apply should contact Assistant Chief Mike Martin. Applications are available at the Pine Street and Civic Center firehouses. Last Thursday, the East Brunswick girls softball team lost to Hamilton West 13-7. However, later in the week, the girls won against Woodbridge 23-8, North Brunswick 4-1, and Colonia 10-5. The girls team is now 4 wins and 4 losses on the season. Watch Channel 8 for more girls softball coverage later in the season. Wednesday night at the library, the East Brunswick Arts Commission presented Dancers in a Winter's Night, or Romance Through Dance. Bahala Jones and Roberto Garcia displayed the art of costumes, courtship, and flirtation with dance through the Renaissance period.
Good afternoon. Once again, I thank you for tuning in to Consumer Aware. On this beautiful day today, I would like to bring you some helpful hints on purchasing a pool, whether it be a beautiful in-the-ground pool where I am sitting here or a smaller version above the ground pool. There are many areas of complaints concerning pools. The most important thing with the in-the-ground pool, which I will talk about first, is to shop around and make sure you are getting the best value for your money. Also, I would like to give you a piece of advice, and that is to apply to the municipal building for a permit for your in-the-ground pool. This is for your protection from start to finish of that pool. There have been problems where the grading was not done correctly, pools had collapsed, so this would eliminate you running into that sort of problem. Also, when you are contracting to have a pool put in the ground, make sure what you are contracting for and who you are contracting with. The pool company versus the installer versus the people that come in with the cement. All this is very important because if there is a problem, you want to know who guarantees what and what the warranties are for. Are you going to go back to the pool company and are they going to say to you, oh, I'm sorry, it's the installer's fault? So look into all those aspects when you're considering having a pool put in. An above-the-ground pool works very much the same way. You have to be concerned who you are purchasing from, what you really want, what problems you could run into. When you purchase a pool, let's say for an example, AZ Company, is that pool company going to be responsible from start to finish? Or do you then have to deal with an installer? And for example, we had one complaint where after the pool was put up, there was a hole in the lining. And the people went back to the store that they purchased it from and they said, oh, read your guarantee, read your warranty. We're not responsible, the manufacturer is. We found out that the manufacturer was in Canada. And if those people wanted that manufacturer to stand behind that lining, they had to take that liner and ship it themselves back to the manufacturer in Canada, which probably in the long run would have cost them twice the amount of the liner. So these are the things that I ask you to be aware of. Make sure who's going to guarantee everything and get it in writing. Let me take a minute here to remind you that you can call your local Consumer Affairs office before dealing with pool companies or contractors and find out what the record is of these businessmen. And at that time, we will try and guide you and give you some helpful hints as to what to be aware of each step of the way. I thank you so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to our next meeting.
A major issue in East Brunswick this week was the collapse of an old tunnel that runs under the Old Bridge Turnpike behind the Route 18 flea market. Township engineer Bill Tanner describes the problem.
Hi, I'm Bill Tanner, the Township engineer. Behind me is a hole that has developed alongside the Old Bridge Turnpike. It's approximately 20 feet wide and 10 to 12 feet deep. The hole was caused by an old railroad tunnel which runs under the slope to the left here and continues on to the right into South River. It's an old brick tunnel constructed back in the late 1800s and was used for trucking material from the pit to the left into a brick plant that was constructed in South River. The hole is continuing to deteriorate as the tunnel itself starts losing material. It's approximately 17 feet below the spot I'm standing on right now. The roadway itself, as you can see, is starting to cave in due to the hole falling in and sloughing in, and it will continue to do so until the hole in the top of the tunnel is repaired. Presently, there are plans to reconstruct or to structurally reinforce the tunnel, and hopefully this work will be done in the next 4 to 6 weeks to allow the Old Bridge Turnpike to be reopened. Until such time as that work is done, however, the road itself has to remain closed for safety reasons.
At the Township Council meeting on Monday, the road collapse and the liability for repairs was a major topic of discussion. Mayor Fox presented the problem to the council.
Just to orient you, and I've got some material to hand out to you in a minute. The area that we're talking about is at this point on Old Bridge Turnpike. This is the edge of our road, Route 18 Old Bridge Turnpike intersection. This is Tice's Lane. This is the Transportation Center, Mid-State Mall. Now, what is there is First Old Bridge Turnpike, which, and I think it's important that we get the context of this before we start talking about potential solutions. We have first the Old Bridge Turnpike, which, to my knowledge, has been there for at least 200 years, and probably much longer. We have under the Old Bridge Turnpike an old tunnel that was used to move materials that were quarried or mined, as you prefer, from this general area and on this side of Route 18 down to brick and tile factory that was down in this area. And the tunnel has been there, the best estimate I can get, at least in the order of 80 to 100 years. So we're talking about very old structures. I think another important point is that that the only two useful purposes that the tunnel now serves. One is, and this is an important purpose for us, it drains a major portion of East Brunswick, about 90 acres, all the way up to Parker Street, Mid-State Mall, Transportation Center, the stores along Route 18, a minor amount contributed by Route 18 itself. It's 90 plus acres of drainage area that flows down in this general direction, down into the low point in the pit, and then through the tunnel and down into the marshes along the river. The other useful purpose is that on the order of 20 to 25 years ago, when sanitary sewers were connected from East Brunswick over to Middlesex County now Utilities Authority plant, the cheapest way to put those lines through was to go through the tunnel itself. And so there's a 24-inch sewer line that goes through the tunnel, which serves approximately half of East Brunswick. That is, the sewage from approximately half the community flows through that sewer line. Phase.
Once you start shoring up the tunnel, how long is it until you can patch the road and people can travel on it?
Well, you figure 5 days to get the tunnel, to get the material in place, people and all that, and then 10 days after that. I say conservatively 4 weeks to reopen the road. It may be a little less, but I think that would be a more conservative estimate.
2 months to put the steel plates in, basically.
No. He said that first phase would last safely for, say, 2 months, but because of additional water coming in and so on, you need to do something else right after that. Yeah. Now this all assumes the tunnel doesn't collapse while we're talking.
Of course.
Because once that happens, then you've got no choice but to make a big cut and go that way.
Between the installation of the steel plates and the pouring of concrete, we went through both phases to complete, to both make the roadway safe and then to put the drainage and the low concrete in. What would that time step be?
Well, figure, that wasn't discussed specifically, but my inference is that it would be, that would be done within 2 months after the initial phase. That is, the whole thing would be completed in 2 months.
So you think maybe 3, possibly 4 months, the roadway could be, well, the roadway could be open within 4 weeks.
Yes.
But you couldn't go beyond that, leaving the roadway open unless you started doing phase
Right, you'd
2.
have to do phase 2 right away. Now, we had a long discussion this morning with the county staff and also the sewage authority was represented, as well as South River. And the jurisdictional issues here are so clouded that we generally agreed that attempting to arrive at some compromise amongst us, or at least between East Brunswick and the county, was the best way to serve the public so that we don't have this road closed any longer than necessary. And the county and us agreed to propose the following to the Board of Freeholders and to you. We would agree with the county to share 50-50 in any unreimbursed cost up to $100,000.
100,000 total each or total?
No, 100,000 East Brunswick up to $100,000. So that if, for example, there was no state involvement and the cost of making this repair was $300,000, the maximum that we would have to pay would be $100,000. If it turned out to be $500,000, the maximum we would pay would be $100,000, and in that case, 20% of the cost of it. Now, if the 90-10 state money is available, then we would pay half of 10. We'd pay 5% of the cost of the project.
The issue was not resolved at the meeting, and the emergency funds could not be committed for the project. Councilman Joseph Hudak and Mayor Fox had this to say after the meeting.
Mr. Hudak, you voted no on the emergency referendum pertaining to the tunnel under Old Bridge Turnpike that collapsed. Can you explain that?
Yes, I was handed some papers. Within 45 minutes I was supposed to make a decision. I felt that it was an open-end discussion in relationship to the amount of money. I felt that the taxpayers had to give out $100,000, where I felt that the county was responsible for the road and also the state. We give the county $6.6 million a year, and I felt that we shouldn't have been in a position to give them $100,000 on this project. And I don't think it's an emergency, as they did mention, because of the fact that the county and the state, I'm sure, is going to repair the road. And if in turn the $100,000, it would sort of bind us in that when we go into litigation or something, we have assumed the encumbrance of the $100,000, and it would weaken our case in court. So I felt that this was my reason.
Mayor Fox, how do you feel about the vote, Mr. Hudak, on the emergency session in the council?
I think Mr. Hudak's playing games with the public interest. This is an emergent situation, and one which requires rapid decision-making, and to say that somehow the county should do something that they're not really obscures the problem. The problem is to bring about the repair as quickly as possible. I believe that we do have some responsibility, since it does drain a significant part of East Brunswick, and to get the road open. I think that it's the amount of money that we're talking about, which at its maximum is $100,000, but I've received a number of assurances that the state is in all likelihood going to participate, which would narrow our liability to perhaps $25,000. Is not great compared to the inconvenience to the public. If you add up all of the waiting time, gasoline is going to be burned, the expense to the public in East Brunswick, I think that it would be far more than even $100,000 over a period of time, and this decision by Mr. Hudak conceivably could hold up the repair for a number of days. The longer we wait, the longer the road is going to be closed.
So you feel that his decision will significantly delay any emergency construction on the project?
Yes, and unless I'm able to reach Mrs. Blethyn and see what her intention would be on a vote to fund the project, I suspect that the county and the state are going to be unwilling to begin tomorrow afternoon, which is when they were hoping to make a decision on what to do.
Thank you, Mayor Fox.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that the reason why we closed the road is a safety consideration. And I'd like to stress that we've done this for the safety of the people in the area. We're sorry for the inconvenience. And I'd also like to ask that people stay away from the area. This is not some place that we want to have a lot of people congregating. It is not a safe place to be, and we'd appreciate your cooperation in that.